Hey everyone, it's Alan over at Cobblers Plus, and thank you for joining us for our daily video. In today's video, we're going to be working on a pair of Magnanis and showing you how you can upkeep your shoes with that beautiful shine and give them a little bit of love and attention in between those full-on treatments when you take them to either your local shoe shiner, cobbler, or when you do it yourself. So come join us and check it out. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about taking care of your shoes kind of at that next stage from last week's video where we talked about just your basic treatment and conditioning that I recommend doing maybe once every couple of weeks, depending how often you wear your footwear, using the Renovator Cream. But taking the next step up, say you take your shoes to your local cobbler or shoe shiner who does a beautiful, phenomenal job, and you're not quite at that point where you want him or her or yourself even either to go through the whole entire process of stripping it down and just, redoing the whole shine, in other words, and you just need a basic maintenance. So we're going to be talking about that today, and you could be using a number of different products. You could be using things like Bic, you could be using the Saphir Renovator, you could be using a number of different other alternatives. We've got some Angelus wax here. Angelus makes some great stuff too. But again, as always, we're really big into the Saphir line, so we're going to be using Saphir in particular today. I've got a pair of Magnanis here that we have for display. As you can tell, these are kind of a before and after sample piece that we experimented with. And the one that we actually did the work on with the new JR sole is starting to look a little shabby after being on display. Picked up multiple times. People like touching that mirror finish and everything. Your shoes don't necessarily have to have a mirror finish on them to be able to do this. It could be just a regular kind of matte finish as well. Now, when I say matte finish, I don't mean oil treated leather. I don't mean something that's supposed to have that natural kind of ruggedy, rustic look. I'm talking about just full grain leather, certain shell cordovans as well, box leather, corrected grain leather, a number of those types of more standardized leathers. If you're getting into the exotic leathers, that's a little different, a little iffy, so we're going to talk about at least the basic, the things that just about every single person in the world, if they own a nice pair of dress shoes, they own a pair that is full grain leather, box leather, corrected grain leather, something along those lines. Basic calf leather, and that's all we're going to talk about, at least in this video. We'll get to the other ones down the road, so stay tuned for those. Make sure you hit that notification bell icon to keep an eye out if you have any questions about specific types of exotics, specific types of leather, and how to take care of it, and we'll go ahead and get through those over a period of time, so just stay tuned for those. But in the meantime, we'll start out with this guy here. As I mentioned, this pair, it's not doing all that well, appearance-wise at least. We've been taking care of it. We'll buff it up every now and then. It had a nice thick mirror shine done on the toe, as you can tell maybe right there. It was beautiful, but certain areas are starting to look a little shabby. So first things first, we're going to grab our horsehair brush. Or first things first. I already have the shoe trees out of these. Usually we'll keep a shoe tree in here just for display purposes sometimes, but lately I've been taking it out because the shoe hangs up and that shoe tree is just a little too heavy to hang this up nicely. So yes, shame on me, so on and so on. But first thing, grab your horsehair brush, buff it over a little bit, get any dust and debris out of the way. Make sure you get there in between the laces and between any of the buckle areas or Velcro, whatever you may have. Make sure you get in there nicely and buff it over. One other thing you could always try as well beforehand, if it's just way too soon, you could always, on the toe area, that's usually what gets beaten up the most and has the most amount of wax, just a little bit, buff it over. See if that helps it. If a little bit of heat and moisture off your breath is not enough to buff it out with a horsehair brush or a chamois kind of like this that's a little bit more tight fibered basically. If that doesn't work, then you're gonna move on to the step that we're about to be doing here in a minute. Try it out one last time. It looks significantly better. Just not quite like we'd want it to. And this is the worst spot right here on that very edge there. So next step, after we brushed it over, we test it out. I think I accidentally touched the shoe to my mouth there. We're going to grab our conditioner, and I always love to use a conditioner. You know, it's a must. Even though you have waxes on here from polish or anything, the waxes are supposed to help protect the shoe from any kind of water damage or anything being absorbed into it. Yes, that means it's going to repel some of the conditioner, but there's always going to be fine little spots here and there that maybe the wax didn't completely cover it well enough. And so just adding that little bit of conditioner will help significantly. Again, you could be using Big Four, you could be using one of Angelus's balm creams, you could be using something else. You know, nothing against any of these other brands. We just prefer Saphir, so that's what we're going to be. We've got our renovator on. I'm going to brush it over to get some of the excess off, get into the little nooks and crannies just a little bit. You could leave it on and just let it soak in. I like to just brush it off lightly. I'm not actually buffing. I'm just brushing off certain areas that may have a little too much cream left over, or maybe got stuck in there, because it looks ugly when you got a little chunk of cream somewhere. All right. So our next step is going to be to use a wax. We like to use the Saphir Medal Duo Pate Deluxe in particular. There is the Beauty Cure version as well. There is things like Angelus. There's Kiwi. Yes, and I say that like cobblers, shoe guys, shoe shiners, guys that do dye jobs and stuff. We don't like Kiwi. We'll get into that down the road, but for the time being, just as a heads up, we're not fans of Kiwi. There's a number of reasons why. But in today's video, we're going to be taking out our Pate Deluxe. I like to do something a little bit different. I'm using the navy blue on these, even though they're kind of like a steel gray with a little bit of brown in there. And just because the waxes, they have a transparency to them, so you can experiment with just about any color on any color shoe. You'll give it a natural patina and so on. You know, so just experiment with that if you like. Mix up the colors, but because the waxes have more transparent dye pigment in there, it's still going to show a beautiful color. And when you mix in a different shade in there, it's only going to kind of enrich it, in other words. So don't be don't be too frustrated if you decide to use a different color and it turns into a color you're not too happy with. It's easy to take off wax. It's harder to take off a cream polish or a dye of some sort. So experiment with some waxes. Maybe you'll just kind of alternate between multiple colors and go from there. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and apply this wax by hand everywhere. You can use whatever method you like. Some guys like to use these same exact cloth here and apply the waxes on. Some like to use a fiber chamois like this one from Saphir that's a little softer to apply it. I like to use my bare fingers. Just enough wax will get on there, and that way I can really massage those toe areas out. All right, so I just got the wax all over the shoe, one thin coat. I like to go through a second time on the toe area, third time sometimes, fourth, whatever you feel comfortable with, and just kind of layer on a little bit of wax around the toe. Obviously, we went through the edging as well with this same exact wax. Gives it a nice little final touch, because if you ignore your edges, I mean, what's the point then? I mean, you're gonna have beautiful uppers, and then the edges, still people see that from the side a little bit, sometimes from the top, depending on the build of the shoe. So give those edges a little love. Go through the heel a couple of times as well, just on the back area, just like kind of like a half circle, in other words, basically, just because that heel area, give it a little shimmering too. And we like to layer on the waxes in the heel area and the toe, because it's got a harder counter underneath. Those areas don't tend to flex too much and everything, so they work out very well for that. So we're gonna let this dry for a couple of minutes, about 5 to 10 minutes, and we'll be back in a second. All right, so we've let these sit for a little while. It looks like, obviously it's not quite shiny because of the wax just being applied on there, but it looks like the cracks that were starting to appear, those little minor cracks, are filled in beautifully, so I don't really need to layer on too much more. I did stick another shoe tree back in there to double check. Probably should have done that in the first place. I like to sometimes take them out because typically for us in the back when we're working, we have large buffers, so it's easier for us to stick our hand in there and buff it out. But when you're doing it by hand, a shoe tree might be a good idea to insert. So I'm going to take our horsehair brush and just buff it over slightly. That friction's going to remelt the waxes and bring out more of a shine. Make sure you go through the edges. Can't just apply wax either on them and just leave them unbuffed. Just a little bit of heat and moisture on that toe. Now obviously it's not going to be a full-on mirror shine because we are using a horsehair brush. In order to be able to accomplish that mirror shine and return it to pristine conditions, you have to do another step. That step is a little more on the advanced side, so if you're somebody that's starting out and beginning, I don't recommend messing with it quite yet. We'll get down to that down the road, but for the time being, I really want to make sure I cover your basic stuffs first so that everybody gets kind of a little more acquainted with everything. If you're watching this video in the future, basically, you know, you could probably check out that video now. But for the time being, this is what we would like to recommend to everyone. For your basic maintenance, you know, it's not an awful shine. It still looks phenomenal. I mean, this is presentable. You could do this on just about any kind of shoe that's, again, a full grain leather. You could also take a bit of a chamois like that and just kind of buff it over to give it that nice little final touch there. And obviously you want to use more of a chamois type and just do that. Hot breath adds a little bit of moisture, and voila, that actually did a really good job using this Saphir chamois here. We have these in stock. Actually, I only have a couple of those left. I might have to hurry up and get some more in, but you could also use some of these other ones that are a little bit thicker, but they're kind of the same softness on one side. So those microfiber chamois work phenomenal, and it really brought back a shine nicely on there. So there you go. It does a beautiful job. We use navy blue on this one. Obviously you can use burgundy, you can use black, you can use brown, you could use a gray on here. Yes, Saphir does make a gray. It's not very popular. We finally got a couple in stock, but looks like I'm down to one. Shoot, I better hurry up and get my restock going and everything on these. But anyways, going on. That's how you do your kind of basic touch-up. So say you scuffed up the toe just at least a little bit, or it's starting to crack on the waxes. When you use a wax like this, typically most of these harder waxes, again, they don't have much dye pigment to them, so you're not going to drastically change your color, and you can experiment with a number of colors. The harder wax is going to help fill in all those minor cracks and everything, and with a small amount of turpentine. Some of these other ones use other things, maybe like alcohol or certain amounts of acetone as well. I've noticed a couple of companies do that. In particular, Saphir tends to use turpentine in it, all pine-based turpentine, so it's a lot more natural and safer. But using that on there, you're going to be able to even out that wax coating. That old wax coating will get evened out and blended into the new waxes that you're applying. The whole process of letting it dry for about 5 to 10 minutes allows that turpentine to evaporate. So when you're doing all the buffing, whether it's a chamois or a horsehair brush like this, that friction is going to remelt the waxes and make it a nice, beautiful shine. So make sure you have your horsehair brushes. Have a shine chamois around to experiment with. If you're somebody that just uses horsehair brushes, grab one of these, man. They're ranging anywhere from about a couple of dollars to maybe on the high end of $15, okay? Some of them are higher end just because they have certain types of weave patterns on it. So, but we'll get into that again down the road. We're just starting out these videos. Obviously this video is a little bit longer. It seems like I'm gonna have to try to readjust my thought process on these videos, but I'm gonna try to keep them under 10 minutes roughly. There's too much to show. I apologize if you're here for just the 5-minute long videos. They're just not working out for me. So if you're not liking them, I'm sorry. There's just too much I have to show you and tell you. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell icon for getting notified when we have our next video. We are posting daily videos Monday through Friday, and then we have our full recraft videos on Saturdays, and we're starting back up with our Soul Talk Sunday on Sundays now. So join us for those videos and get more details on the full recraft of construction of footwear, and as well as our daily videos talking about different products, different accessories, small treatments and maintenance on your footwear, and you know, just enjoy it and learn some things here and there if you're not familiar with the footwear industry, or if you are, you may learn a trick. You may learn a trick or two. I can't talk this morning. But anyways, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you all tomorrow.